You are listening to Additional Crew Film Review with Nick Meyer and Andrew Gomez. These spoiler-heavy reviews are meant for entertainment purposes only. Please do not attempt anything said on this show at home. Now sit back, relax, and listen to these two dinguses talk about a movie. Enjoy! My husband was a movie freak. Actually, he was particularly obsessed with one movie, The Wizard of Oz. He talked about it constantly. I thought it was cute at first. On our wedding night, I was a virgin. When we made love, well, you've seen the movie, haven't you? Well, when we made love, whenever when he came, he would just scream out, "Additional crew!" That's all. Just additional crew. What's up, Andrew?
What's up, Nick? Good morning, Paul.
Haha. How's it going, man?
We're back here
Yeah.
with a new review.
We got some more holiday time. Good time shit. If you're hearing this on the day it comes out, happy Thanksgiving, happy, Native American, whatever you want to call it. I'm into it. Happy day. So, Andrew, as you know, we start these things off with our challenge.
Yes.
So last week I asked you to listen to Protomartyr's Under Color of Official Right.
You did.
Did you listen to the album?
I did.
What did you think about the album?
Dude, you keep throwing me these albums that I'm thinking, okay, I've gone through one gauntlet of sound. He could not possibly have more gauntlets that I need to go through. And I was not fully expecting this to be that experience. But, dude, when I tell you this was a physical challenge more than just a listening challenge, I'm not being facetious. Like, I went through this album. I had gone through it once. I think I got halfway. I'm looking at the track list right now. And as I'm looking at the track list, I'm going to tell you, I had a headache. When did it start? It probably started during Bad Advice or Son of Dis. So I got to track 9. I was just like, dude, I got to turn this off. Like, I'm in, like, my head, like, was throbbing. Like, I'm going to work, and, like, this is not how I want to start my day at work with a headache.
That's wild to me because to me it sounds so much like a 2010s like indie fucking rock album, just like twisted a little bit.
And you're not wrong. I got flares of that. I got hints of Interpol. I'm not sure if that's like a dig or a disrespect to Protomartyr. I don't know where their influences come from. I know a lot of people praise this album. I like post-punk, and I do not want to just like completely trash on the albums you send me. Because there were some like highlights on this album. The intro, the opener, I think it's a fantastic opener for just a. Okay, also, this album's very bleak. Am I wrong in this this perspective?
I don't think that you're necessarily wrong, but I don't think it all is bleak.
My life has been an up and down. Like, my life hasn't been positive. I've had to go through a journey myself. And so you sending me this challenge took me into, I didn't listen to a lot of the lyrics at first. I listened to the actual songs. And so Maidenhead, I had made a point and I wrote it down somewhere. Oh, here we go. Thought off the first listen, he said, "Shit goes up, shit goes down." What did you think he said when you first heard the lyrics to that song? I'm sure you've listened to this album enough times to know what I'm referencing when I say "shit goes up, shit goes down."
That's what I heard as well.
You heard that too,
sure. Yeah.
And then the lyrics. Do you know how the lyrics go? I have them here. I'm just wondering.
No, honestly, I actually still think it says that.
No, the lyrics, according to YouTube, it says "shade goes up, shade goes down," which I have no idea what that means. But the whole song is some nihilistic despair of over time, just seeing this world bleak, and I wish I had the lyrics in front of me right now. Because he has this like refrain that like he doesn't see the world positively at this point, and it's the start of the album. So I'm like, okay, this album's just gonna like bring me down a tunnel of just despair and like nihilism, in my opinion. And so when I say I'm not in a good place, Nick, I was not in a good place. Like I always try to maintain this like level of optimism, much like the character we find today. But you know,
Mm-hmm.
certain things just take a toll, and then you just start to break down when things just start piling up. And I guess maybe that's what the person, you know, in this song starts off with. He just starts off with a miserable point of view and just continues that. I don't know. I don't know where is there a central focus of this album. I'm gonna ask you right now because I don't know if I pulled a central focus, but from this song I pulled that.
So I and this isn't like an official thing that I've read from them anywhere. What I take this album as typically is a view into the life of someone who projects hate and fear. It is not him singing about himself. It is him singing from this perspective of someone who operates based on fear. Under Color of Official Right is an easy, pretty clear dig at what I'm talking about here. It's like you're in an authoritarian view, and this is where it comes from. So he doesn't mean that towards himself. He's talking about this like theoretical character, from what I can build up.
But at the end of the day, regardless,
Mm-hmm.
this song is very bleak. It's very dark, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. And the album doesn't have many um, sounds of positivity. It seems very uh, drab, very like a lot of the instruments, a lot of the sounds you hear are like just clanging, like clanging. It sounds like they're not clean instruments.
See, that's where I disagree with you. I feel like this is a very clean album. I feel like the guitar is
There's a
full of
lot of reverb. It's so
hooks.
guttural. It's so just like it sounds like I'm in a warehouse sometimes. Just the pang of the sound. And I didn't mean to cut you off. So where do you see the cleanliness of this album?
Um, it's pretty much throughout the guitar and bass hooks. Like they are almost they do have a lot of reverb. You're right, but they don't have a lot of I'm spacing the word right now. It starts with a D. Distortion. Like there's not a
Okay,
ton
distortion.
of
Yeah, I hear a
distortion on it.
lot of
So
distortion in this album,
see, it that's
especially at
it's
that
funny
last
because I don't
song.
hear it for a punk song. Really like for a punk album, this is like very clean to me. It is very like just it's hooks all the way throughout with the guitar licks.
I'm trying to pull up the lyrics right now just so I can like remind myself of um, what he was going for in the first song. I'll go into the other songs, but I
Mm-hmm.
just want to make a point because this is the song that stuck out to me the most. I have highlights.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have lowlights in this album. But he says, "Don't feel nothing for anyone. Don't feel no love for anything. Don't feel nothing for anyone. Don't feel no love for anything." It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
and like I've been going through this, you know, topsy turvy world of emotions myself, and so to hear something like that, even like subliminally, because at first you don't pick it up, but obviously he's saying it, so maybe something's like seeping through my head, and like that's not that's not how I want to start my day. I'm over here listening to podcasts like the happiness podcast to like uplift myself. And I don't mean to make this about myself. This is not. I'm talking about the album, and so I'll press on. I'll press on. And so Maidenhead, it's like a solid like 8, 7 out of 10 intro song. I know I was
Mm-hmm.
just talking about how bleak and despair, but it does it well. And so like you gotta give it, it's props for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into the second song, which is "Ain't So Simple." Run of the mill. I don't have much to say. 5 out of 10. Uh, Want Remover. Again, nothing. I don't have a lot to say. Um, Gave that a 4. Track 4. Trust Me, Billy. Again, I don't remember a whole lot. I think the things I remember from that song that I gave it a 3 out of 10 was I don't like the bass rhythm. The bass rhythm in my car, it was not doing my car any favors, and it just kind of like um, it shook my car and not in a good way. It just like the sound just kind of like clashed over each other, and it kind of disrupted my my head. Track 5, Pagans, very smooth singing. I liked it. Short song, 7 out of 10. Great song. I thought. Um, I'm trying to think what songs that reminded me of Interpol. I have it written down here too. Um, oh, it's What the Wall Said, which is track 6. Perfect. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
What the Wall Said. That song reminded me of Interpol. That's an 8 out of 10 type song. Uh, and then we start to go down a dark hole per se, because I think I have like Teparian Rock. Actually, no. I think Teparian Rock. No, that was track 6. Teparian Rock, I did not like. I gave that shit a 2. And Son of
Yeah.
Dis, I gave that shit a straight up 0 out of 10.
Ugh. Ugh.
Not a fan of Son of Dis. Scumrise, I did not get a lot from Scumrise. Um, I Stare at Floors, that's another song. I don't have much to say on it. I don't want to listen to it again. That's the song that probably caused me the biggest headache. Come and See, I liked it, and you might agree with this, you might not. I gave that a 6 out of 10, and I gave that a 6 out of 10 because it reminded me of Archie from King Cruel.
Maybe they both have kind of like deeper, more. I don't want to say the music term. I was going to say baritone, but I don't think that's right. But they have deeper voices.
And for me, I think that biggest highlight on the album was the song "Violent." I listened to that again today. I listened to this album again today, from start to finish, just to give it another shot. And yeah, I started to get physical pain again. And
We're
and I
just
don't
we're
mean to be rude to your music at all, and to the people who like Protomartyr. You know, you know, take my opinion with a grain of salt. I do like harshness. I do like harsh music. I like the Death Havens of the world. I like um, the My Bloody Valentine distortion. I can get behind these distorted, guttural, dark sounds with harsh noises. It's just, I don't know. Maybe you could find me more songs from Protomartyr that sound like Violent.
it's. I'm sorry. It's just funny to me because this album is not what I'd call guttural or dark or heavy. Like it's just not. Like this is like more of like, I guess it's got like that indie rock feel to me through
It
a lot
does
of
have
it, and
it.
like the lyrics, yeah, they're heavy, but also like it's to make a point. And I mean, like, and part of them to me they're kind of funny. Like, and I guess this is like just a sense of humor. Like Scum Rise, the one of the first lyrics is the sports bar exploded and everyone died. They're not like they're tongue in cheek a little bit, like. But I live in this world. I live in the world where I'm around a lot of people who have a lot of bad things going on in their life pretty constantly. So
And maybe this can be some sort of reflection on that. You can, you know, dissociate and put all that negativity in those sound into like sound form with this artist, Protomartyr. I don't know. I cannot get the experiences you experienced from this album. Only you can. And so, was this the first album you heard from Protomartyr? A
yeah,
lot of people.
hmm
This was a lot of people's introduction to Protomartyr.
yeah.
I
This is
feel.
the first album I heard. I
Yeah,
fell in love with it like almost immediately.
that's awesome. I think sometimes music finds you in the right time, right place. And I don't think you do this to like challenge me with my sound, but I think you're trying to introduce me to a world that I'm familiar with, but unfamiliar with at the same time. Because I do know some level of post punk. Interpol was considered post punk, right? Am I wrong in this?
Post punk revival, but
Revival. Okay.
yeah. I see that it's funny because I really thought this one was like setting up a post punk album on a tee because I'm like, how can you hate this? It's so catchy, and you didn't catch any of it. Nothing.
I did not catch it. Violent. Violent's a good song.
They're all good songs.
They're all just tense. Hey, I'm not here to negate that from you. I can only give you what I received from this album, and maybe one day I'll go back and look back as like, oh, I was foolish for having those opinions.
Oh, this is fine. Opinions different for every person.
Yeah, but as it stands, um, I'm ready to give. I didn't talk about the last song, and I'll take that applause. I don't have a lot of positivity to say. Maybe that's why I was avoiding talking about it.
Okay.
People always say, "You have nothing nice to say. Don't say anything at all."
That's fair.
I did like it, but the ending.
I think it's worth shouting out here that Joe Casey and his lyrics that he puts into this aren't just like strictly negative. There's a lot of references to classical literature in here.
I like that.
There's a lot of tongue in cheek. There's a lot of like self reflection. I personally find like most of the lyrics in this are very they have levels of understanding. And you might not have got that from that, and I don't expect you to go back and listen to it now, but I will say that just because I gotta give him a shout out, Joe Casey. I love the shit you put out. If you ever hear this,
Yeah. Hey, and Protomartyr, anybody from the band, I'm not talking bad about your music. I'm only talking bad in the sense that maybe you what you wanted to achieve was to cause somebody a headache, and you did that to somebody, and you can find humor in that. But obviously, people want to enjoy this album, and I think a lot of people have enjoyed this album. They did not have me in mind. And with all that being said, I'm ready to give my score. I was going to do a nice rounded score because I put all these numbers together. I didn't have time to give an average. I'll give a feeling from what I've been saying about it. It's for me. I don't think the album uh, does it for me. It's for me. It's just a 4 out of 10. But please, Nick, give this album its praises. Give it its accolades it deserves. Not from a hater, because I'm not trying to hate on the album. I'm really not. I'm just giving you my honest opinion right now.
no, this is fair. This is fair. We just disagree very strongly, but there's a world in which all opinions are right, and we live in that world. So, personally, I give it like a 9.5 out of 10. I think there's no skips on this album. I think the whole way through, it's just packed full of guitar licks mixed with clever hooks, especially considering the probably limited vocal range that Joe Casey has. He recently has gotten like better at singing, but in this one, he's certainly not great at singing. But he creates pretty clever hooks for it. Like the lyrics are packed full of like little teeny flares that are very clever, and also it is that, and this is strictly my opinion. It is that ever wanting truth that if you live in fear and hate, you see the world in darkness.
Mm, like,
Um, and that's kind of like the underlying thing of it all for me is that it's just all based on someone who just lives in this fear and hate world and has not found love throughout it. Um, and I forget one of the songs actually does mention this a little bit, but I'm spacing on it. There's like more direct, pointed things in this. Like Want Remover is about television, pretty straightforward, right? It's like it's removing all the wants from you in your life, so that way you don't worry about anything. But yeah, I love the song. And Protomartyr kills it live. Like they are very fun to watch live.
What is the crowds like? I'm curious because I was listening to this, like I was like, how do people dance to this? And I get some songs you can dance to. I'm like, what are people doing? What are people
Eh,
doing at the show?
it's pretty like, so I see a lot of post punk shows, and they're all pretty much like this. Like, you don't really dance, you bop. Um,
You bop, so it's just
and
like fish bopping, like you just kind of up and down, like shoulder to shoulder type stuff.
yeah, and when I saw them first time, I saw them in a little bar here in Eugene. Actually, I saw them the first time in Sacramento, and that
Oh,
was a
where
really
at
good
Ace?
show. No, it was the Blue Lamp.
I don't know where that one's at.
That was downtown. I don't know that it exists anymore.
I don't think it does. If I do, I cannot recall a show being there in a long time. Okay, so the Blue Lamp. What
Yeah,
was this?
and
Like
then
circa 2015?
that might be right. It was 2015 or 2014. It was the tour for this album.
Yeah.
Um, and
Dang. So
then
this popped up on your radar, like how did it pop up? Like on a Pitchfork or something like that?
no, it was actually I worked at Dimple, the record store at the time, and it came out through Hardly Art, which we would stock all of Hardly Art stuff, and I really liked the album cover, so I bought it on a whim and listened
It's a
to it.
cool album cover.
And yeah, I bought it on a whim, listened to it, and immediately was like, "Whoa, this is cool!" And then started
Yeah,
looking into it, and just like kind
yeah.
of fell in love with it. I think one of my coworkers, actually, I didn't have the day off, and one of my coworkers covered the shift because he knew how much I liked this album.
That's awesome. Shout out to
So,
that person.
and so yeah, that's what I got. So now we alternate these challenges. So Andrew, you've got a challenge for me. What do you got?
Okay. So again, you describe this album as nothing short of shit, nothing like chaos, but to me, it felt like chaos because it was chaotic in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been dealing me these cards. I'm ready to pay the favor back. Now you can choose to take the challenge as a way of like, okay, is he trying to give me something difficult, or is he just really trying to match the energy that you have provided me? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to give you a slow. I was thinking of giving you something slow and down tempo. Maybe that would be the challenge because you're not used to that. But I want you to know that I do understand chaos. I do know how to handle bombastic, loud, and maybe you know where I'm going with this in some way. So for this challenge, I'm taking you back to 2017. And with a little bit uniqueness with this challenge, I'm going to ask you to provide me whatever you feel comfortable sharing with the audience, where you were doing, what you were doing, what things you want to share in 2017. Because these albums, I can share on my next, on our next pod myself, what I was doing listening to these albums. Or I say albums because we normally share our albums, but these are actually, I'm giving you some singles.
Okay.
And one single is from a Sacramento industrial band that we talked about in the last pod, Death Grips.
Mm-hmm.
They were and still are one of my favorite from Sacramento, from industrial hip hop standpoints, just really cutting edge sound for the time. And in 2017, they dropped a single called Steroids, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Gabber. And you might think, oh, this song is 22 minutes long. Well, you'll find yourself, I'll let you explore that. You'll see it like, why is this 22 minutes long? I'll let you explore that, and you can come back to me with your opinions. But the second part of this, I'm giving you like a split EP, so it's like
Okay.
You can decide how you want to listen to it. You can listen to Death Grip's portion first, or you can listen to the next person I want you to listen to. It's off their album World Eater, and the artist I'm gonna have you listen to is called. I'm gonna spell out the first part, and you tell me if this sounds right. Blanck blank
Okay. I think blank or blanc.
Blanc Mass. They're a British act. One part of the group called Fuck Buttons. Have you heard of them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so in this album, World Eater, kind of you'll look at the album cover and you're like, oh, this is kind of ties into undercolor of Official Right because I'm pretty sure it's a dog on the album cover. At least a snarling dog snout or something. I want you to listen to the first two tracks. The first song is called John Doe's Carnival of Error, and you have to
Okay.
play them back to back. You have to play one into two because it does not. Listen to song one does not do you any justice if you don't immediately listen to the next song. So those two, well, three songs essentially.
Okay.
So you decide how you want to listen to it first. You can listen to one John Doe's Carnival of Error and then Recess Negative right after, or you can listen to the Death Grips portion. However you want to, fine by me. But that is your challenge. And again, please, if you feel comfortable sharing anything that you can remember memorable from 2017 that you can bring to our audience. I know
Yeah,
I will share my experiences in 2017 as well, from what I can remember.
Yeah, 2017 was a pretty. I think I've listened to something of theirs because they're on Sacred Bones. But anyway, we'll get to there. I don't think it was from that year. I think it was a more recent one. But yeah, 2017 was an interesting year, so I'll have some stuff.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. So we got the challenge, and please post that in Discord.
I will. I will. I know.
Thank you.
I'll send you a Spotify, so that way it's a little playlist. So that way it's a little bit easier for you to navigate those two songs.
Sick. Okay.
Oh, those
So let's jump into the movies that we've seen in the in betweens. And I know you have one. I'm going to start off with mine because I have a set. So first off, much like Paul went through an odyssey in the movie we were watching and talking about tonight, I had gone on an odyssey through the last 2 weeks, and well, doing other things. These aren't dedicated watches, but they ended up being dedicated watches. Some of them. I ended up watching Children of the Corn 1 through 4. And you might be like, "Hey, why did this guy watch Children of the Corn 1 through 4?" That's
was my exact
because
thought.
I wanted something that I didn't have to pay attention to because I was doing other things, and then I just ended up kind of continuing on because, well, we'll get there. So I'm just gonna go through this in order. Children of the Corn 1. It's a classic that is honestly a movie I've never cared much for. I hadn't seen it in a while, so I was decided, okay, maybe I changed my mind. Linda Hamilton, you may know her from the Terminator 2 specifically. I think she's in both of them, but Terminator 2, she's the mom of John Connor. So Linda Hamilton does the heavy lifting for why you'd want to see it, and Stephen King's plastered all over it. This is one of his movies based on one of his stories. The twist of the young kid actually being an old guy is it's kind of hokey at this point, and the film still really doesn't actually do anything to me. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10 for the first one. So the question is, yeah. So why did I ever watch the sequels? Because I remember something from when I was a little kid, and I was trying to find this. So I was like, okay, it's not the first one. I'm gonna keep going. Children of the Corn 2. The tone and pacing of this movie was a little bit better than the first, and honestly, it feels like they understood the assignment and that only true horror weirdos would watch this film. Still not great, but it is better, and it actually shows some promise for things potentially to come. 5 out of 10. It's Children of the Corn 2. 5 out of 10. Children of the Corn 3. This is where the magic starts.
Ooh.
That's usually a bad sign to have the Magic start on the third film of a franchise, and
Yeah.
I would guess that their franchise hasn't gone that well. But long after anyone sane would have abandoned the corn to the field, the franchise brings the corn to Chicago. While the plot setup is contrived and the method of possession is a tad bit confusing, this movie amps up the special effects and the hilarity of character interaction. So it's right around the time the Amish kid realizes he's great at basketball and becomes best friends with the locals is around the time the roaches start coming out. The death scenes in this film have to rank among some of the best. They're seriously great. Like not just for like the Children of the Corn films, but for like horror films in general. The special effects and just the creativity that went into these scenes is amazing. So Gorehounds are gonna love it, and even just those looking for a campy horror movie would also love it. I'm giving that one a 7.5 out of 10.
Dang. Getting
I
stressed.
yeah. All right, right. The first two are awful, and then this third one comes out of nowhere, and it's like, yeah, we have a bad idea. It's kind of
What?
stupid. Yo,
All the same director?
no. I actually I didn't verify that, so maybe, but I would be seriously shocked.
Okay. Continue. I'll look it up really quick.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, right. Children of the Corn 3, awesome. So Children of the Corn 4, this movie said, hey, we're going to do something in a different direction. The series saw 3 get better effects and decided that instead of attempting to one up that, what if we attempted to have actual lore and gave a reason for all the children becoming Amish murder machines? Well, they enlisted the help of the wonderful actress Naomi Watts, and they attempted it. They don't exactly create something that redefines horror, but they do something that I would have guessed impossible in the series up to this point, which is they actually made me care about what happened to the adults and to the children. The effects are actually still pretty good, but the creativity is mostly lost. And it just doesn't compare to number 3 in special effects. But Naomi Watts and her daughter and the subplot that comes up are great. And somehow in number 4, they've managed to make everything I've seen before this make a little bit of sense. 6 out of 10. It's just kind of like this weird roller coaster of a series where it's like the first one's the classic, but it's actually kind of awful. The second one just existed to exist, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, we hit our stride. Which is again, it's a bad sign for a franchise if you hit your stride on the third movie after 2 pretty bad movies. But
Yeah,
I was
for them to
shocked.
for Hollywood to still take a risk, I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming this. Let's see, this movie came out September 12th, right before Halloween. So people were going to theaters like, okay, we want a campy, maybe something silly during the time. We'll watch it. The release date on the second one was in January. Also, all different directors. That could
Mm-hmm.
be a lot of it as well.
It has to be because they just went to accomplish such different things. Like I said, Children of the Corn 3 was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's set up something stupid, but we're gonna make really cool effects with really cool death scenes. And they did it. Like they hit it so hard and so right. Um, don't cut that clip out. Children of the Corn 4, on the other hand, was like, how about this time we actually explain what's happening? And like we make it make sense. And let's get Naomi Watts to do it of all people.
So, would you recommend people watch just number 3 if they just want to watch a Children of the Corn film? Do you
Yeah,
think it's enough? Does the third one do enough to give you a sense of what's going on without having to watch 1 and 2?
I want to say no because it doesn't really make sense, but at the same time, watching number 1 and 2 don't actually make it make sense. So the actual answer is yes. You will be a little bit confused, but move on, move past it. Corn's
Move
alive.
past the
Just
computer.
move on,
Yeah.
move on. You're
Like,
gonna love this film if you can move on past that.
okay.
But
And
yeah, so I would definitely recommend skip 1 and 2. Watch number 3. If you like number 3, watch number 4 because it is a worthwhile effort and actually very interesting, and it has some cool pieces. So
solid, solid. And I'm looking at this Wikipedia. It says it's the film debut of Charlize Theron.
was that number 3?
Yeah, number 3.
Hell yeah! See, I didn't even recognize that she was in it. That's how good it is. Charlize Theron does manage to kind of like blend into movies though pretty good, pretty well. Um, but okay, so that's my Children of the Corn Odyssey. I had to take someone through it because it shocked me how much better the movies got as I went on, which is not usual for a horror franchise.
All in one day?
No, over different
Split
days.
up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I couldn't do that to myself all in one day. Not
Yeah,
after
that'd be.
like 1 and 2. Again, they were like 1 and 2 were just like, oh, I can throw something on in the background and maybe I'll get a laugh or a chuckle out of it. Children of the Corn 3, I kept going because I had remembered something from that movie from when I was really little. Like I remember corn stalks grabbing someone inside of a high rise, and I probably shouldn't have been watching that movie when I was really little, but I did. But the special effects are so damn good.
And for me, the Children of the Corn series always stood out as a movie you would see at a blockbuster and just be like, "What the? How did they get to three? What happened to one and two?" Or just like, because this came out in '95, and like you're a kid, and you would always just look at the horror films. For me, I would
Mm-hmm.
always gravitate to going just to see the horror film covers.
Yeah, yeah.
The Jack Frost where it had like the translucent cover
That's
and
where
like
you have the most opportunity to see something cool, really. Like Titanic, you get like two people kissing, but like whatever, right?
yeah, the horror film, the horror section at any blockbuster was always the most exciting. So you would run up to your parents like, I want to go watch this scary movie. And Children of the Corn 3, I think I'm looking at the cover and I was like, oh, this brings up nostalgia.
There was I remember I watched it because I went over to my aunt's house and I was getting babysat by her daughter, whatever family connection that makes. And her daughter didn't care. Like she just threw on whatever movie she could just so that way she could leave us alone. And so like me and my sister watched it and I think I was like 8. Not an appropriate film to watch if you're 8. I'm gonna let the listeners know that. Don't let your 8-year-olds watch it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think a lot of shit just went by the wayside sometimes in the 90s. Like, I was probably way too young to watch a lot of the films. I can't think of any at the moment, but yeah, the shit just, you know, went by the wayside.
So I hear you have a movie you want to talk about.
Yeah. The movie I want to talk about because the only reason I went and watched this POS is because I was thinking my coworkers and I were going to go watch the new Venom, The Last Dance, I think it's called. And my coworkers and I occasionally like to go to watch movies at theaters just to like shit talk them.
Sure.
Uh, and this one was gonna, you know, was gonna do it because I know Venom. I've 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 waited, not waited. I've kept myself from watching this POS because I knew it was gonna be a POS. Like I'm not gonna waste my time watching this, you know, shit film and be disappointed. And I was, but I did it for a reason. Well, that reason never even came up because we didn't even go watch The Last Dance. So now I got bamboozled into watching Venom, and maybe that goes into my hatred more into the film. Uh, but in all reality, I think Venom could have been a lot worse. I've seen some pretty dog shit superhero films.
It's just so hard to imagine them fumbling Tom Hardy as a superhero.
And we use the word loosely because Venom is supposed to be like this anti-hero. He's kind of seen as this hero in this film because he is kind of stopping. Sorry for spoilers on Venom. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I mean, just JK. It's a piece of shit because the villain sucks. I hated the villain. Riz Ahmed was great in The Sound of Metal. I think he did a fantastic job in that movie. I don't think it's like some groundbreaking film, but it did get a lot of praise, and I think it has a positive message. Um, I think he did well in this. I mean, in that, but not this. He did not do good as a villain in in Venom. I did not like him at all. I thought he was uh, comically evil. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm being evil. I'm an evil billionaire who has money to do whatever he wants, and I can become a symbiote if I want to now because I found it. It is mine. It's my property, and now I am Riot, and I'm gonna launch myself. I don't even know why he was launching himself to space. I was half watching this shit film because I'm not going to pay too much mind to this because it's dog shit. I don't care what's going on. I just want to watch it so I can get some context so I don't go into The Last Dance not knowing what the fuck's going on. But that didn't happen.
His name is Riz.
His name is Riz. He is the ultimate Riz.
You got lucky with that name.
Yeah. He has the very few passes in life for people to say, I got the Riz.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I did not like this. I gave this, as I sift through my my little notes, I gave this a 4 out of 10 as a superhero film, and a 3 out of 10 as a movie in general.
Damn. All right.
And
so
the last thing I'll say, Woody Harrelson is possibly, in some ways, a good choice for Carnage, just poorly executed on the way he sounds.
I don't know. I love Woody Harrelson, and that just doesn't feel
Woody
right.
Harrelson in a lot of films. Carnage, though, the idea, I could see the vision.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure who told him to do that voice.
Like you got to compete with Tom Hardy.
Oh man! And then the Venom. The last thing I can keep going on, but the last thing I'll say is the Venom voice got kind of annoying at times.
Yeah. It's hard when you're like the main focus of the movie, right? Because like I guess I compare it to the Bane voice, where it's like it's kind of obnoxious, but like it works a little bit. But like you trying it again, man.
That's a good comparison. It's if you could, yeah, it's easy to make fun of, and I can see how you're trying to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But no,
that's it. I have one more I'm going to do a quick talk about because I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I watched Return to Oz with my 4-year-old. And Return to Oz is actually somewhat pertinent right now because, of course, we have Wicked in theaters, which just broke a bunch of box office records. That's for you, Andrew. I got you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And then the film we're going to talk about tonight actually also has a little bit of Wizard of Oz talk itself. So anyways, Return to Oz, it's a film that is about as dark of a family film as you can find. So you take Dorothy, you make her seem younger, you make Oz seem like mental health issues, and then you send her to electroshock therapy. You make the other girl that tried to save her from the electroshock therapy die from drowning in like the first 20 minutes. Then you take us to the new Oz, one that shows that even dreams can be destroyed. You fill it with nightmare creatures like the Wheelers and wonderful best friends like TikTok and Jack the Pumpkinhead. And then it's just got these wild special effects. It's got an actual compelling story, which has depth to it, and it has some of the coolest set pieces you could ask for. This is a movie that like I'd watched when I was younger, but this is actually better as an adult. I understand some of the subtext and themes. I'm giving this one an 8.5 out of 10. Like it shocked me about how much I actually enjoyed this film, and the 4-year-old also enjoyed it, but for very different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this is where it makes sense to me. Is like he was like, "Wow, I love the characters in this. Like, these guys are so good, and I love them, and they're awesome." And I'm just watching. I'm like, "Wow, this topic. It's terrifying, but it's also like the people who made this stuff are so clever." If you look up the Gnome King, one of just any of his scenes where he's turning from a mountain into a man because everyone that
mountain into a man.
Yeah, because if you believed in Oz, you kept the old world alive, and he was a mountain in the old world. But I could be wrong about that, but this is what I got out of it. But if you got rid of everyone who believed in Oz, he would become a man because that's what he was in the New World. And he did this because he had stolen the ruby slippers. It's a whole thing, and it's a very good whole thing. Very clever, very just different. Hell of a shot. So 8.5 out of 10 for that one.
One question.
Yo.
And you may have said this earlier, and I was not paying attention. That's my fault. But does this play into as a sequel to Wizard of Oz?
Yes, it does. So she's still the same Dorothy, despite her looking younger. I think that's just like contrivances of using a different actress.
Sure.
in like 50 years because it's from 1985.
Sure.
But it is a sequel. So like essentially she goes back to Kansas and she's back on the farm and she's talking about Oz and telling her family about Oz and no one believes her. They go as far as to basically think that she's got something seriously wrong with her brain because of how like vivid and memorable it is to her. And like when she goes back to Oz, like the Mountain King and everyone, they all already know about her and they're scared of her. They're scared of like Dorothy Gale from Kansas because they know that she beat the Wizard of Oz, and the Wicked Witch. And there's a little bit more to it than that, but I can't get into the whole thing. Like I think there's like a bunch of different subplots that actually are very well done. And the Wheelers are some of the creepiest looking characters I've seen in almost any fantasy movie.
Do you think that's
Legitimately
what they were
scary.
striving for, to like make him look terrifying, or just by design they were just terrifying?
I think they were striving for it, honestly, because I think they wanted to add that like feeling of like scariness. I mean, now that I have like two little kids of my own, I can tell you this: like kids like being scared, and I don't mean like seriously scared, but like movie scared, animated, like they seem to enjoy it in like a
It's a
different way.
rush.
Yeah, and I think they're like recognizing that. You see it in like movies like Never Ending Story around the same time, where it's like it's a happy movie, but there's also parts that scare you as a kid, you know. Like I don't know if you've seen it, but like Atreyu in the mud, you're like, oh
No,
no.
I mean I think I've seen it. I just don't recall what parts.
That's fair. That's fair. Both '80s movies that are absolutely wild. But yeah, so that's what I've got for movies. Real quick, I hear you had a shout out you wanted to do.
Yeah, big shout out to Kenny, Kung Fu Kenny. He's back at it again. Dropped a surprise album. I don't have a formulaic opinion on it. All I want to do was like let our listeners know, like go check out Kendrick Lamar's newest album, GNX. You know, he's holding it down for the West Coast. Big shout outs to the West Coast on this album. You know, right now Kendrick Lamar has the crown, and I don't see anyone else taking it from him. Like, he's really running with this, and you know, very few artists in the hip hop realm uh, also do shout outs to like Latin culture. So he opens up the album with like some like Spanish singer, and it's just like, oh hell yeah, dude, this guy's really making waves. I mean, he's been making waves. I mean, you had to be under a rock if you didn't not catch what was going on with Kendrick Lamar and the Drake beef. And so I won't go into that. Whole lot of podcasts have been talking about that. Go listen to their opinions on it. There's a bunch of good ones. And yeah, you know, that's all I have to say. Go check out GNX.
Sick. Um, okay, with that said, I think it's about time we jump into a movie review. What about you?
Hey, we're after hours. Let's take it out.
All right, so this podcast we bring you the ordinary word processor Paul Hackett experiences the worst night of his life after he agrees to visit Marcy, a Soho resident that he met that evening at a coffee shop. Of course, we are talking about After Hours. That is the 1985 film directed by Martin Scorsese, released by the Geffen Company. I don't know if you guys know Martin Scorsese, but I will tell you for this particular film, he won Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival. That was pretty much the only award it won, which I think is pretty wild for a Martin Scorsese movie, because usually they're just like every single award you can imagine. But I think this came out at a particular time in his career. So this movie was considered a work to see if he still loved making films. It was to see if he could still be creative and still bring a new, fresh voice, because this had come out after his like eponymous movies of the 70s, and he had hit a lull. He was failing in the box office. He was starting to question himself, and so he decided, let's make After Hours. And I just off the jump, I'll say, like, to me, you can almost immediately feel that this has a different tone than other movies by Martin Scorsese. Like, there's similarities, but it's definitely got a different tone to it. How familiar are you with Martin Scorsese? How many of his films have you watched, Andrew?
I'm running through the list. Definitely seen Goodfellas.
Hmm.
Definitely seen Taxi Driver. It's been a while for both. One of my favorite of his is The Departed.
Hmm.
Um, for the longest time, I really, really loved watching The Wolf of Wall Street. I think it's hit its mark in its time, that where it doesn't hit the same.
Hmm.
I think it came out at the right time, right place. Uh, I don't know if a film like that does as well as it possibly could, but I think it really hit its stride and when it came out.
Yeah.
Uh, so this one did definitely feel different. There's a moment in the film that I'm not sure if it's a very Scorsese type shot, um, and if you're okay with it, I'm going to mention it. We could go back to the
Sure.
beginning,
Sure. Sure.
but,
Throw it
but
out.
the thing that really stuck out to me that like felt different from a directorial like standpoint and just like a directorial shot was when Marcy and Paul are in the room together,
Hmm.
and this was the first time he had gone into their bedroom, and she's about to go take a shower, and um, there's a moment where Marcy asks if Paul wants to smoke a J,
Hmm.
and then uh, he says maybe later, and then it zooms back to Marcy and like zooms in quickly for her to like do like a wink, and it just felt very. I mean, for me, it felt like very Scorsese, but I'm not sure if he's done that in other films where he did like a fast zoom into her face, where just to annotate and animate the wink.
I can't think of any off the top of my head. It feels like something you'd see in like the Shutter Island or something. Um, off the like without the horror behind it.
You seen Shutter Island?
Yeah. Mhm.
I need to watch that. I
Shutter Island is a very good mystery film.
I've heard
Yeah.
up there. Oh, I've also seen Cape Fear. I forgot that was like one of his big films. I think the thing that sticks out with me with Cape Fear is The Simpsons more than anything else. Honestly, though.
Cape Fear might have more similarities to this movie than a lot of the other ones you would discuss by Martin Scorsese, just because it does have a little bit of that. I don't know with this movie, like, and I'll jump back a little bit, but with this film, especially compared to his '90s and 2000s output, it feels a little bit more raw, a little bit less put together. Maybe just I don't know what the exact right word is. It's not uncut because there's a lot of editing and a lot of cutting in this one, but it feels more alive. Um, and just to real quick, so if you've noticed a lot of the cinematographer in this is Michael Bauhaus, right? And so the movies that he's also done with Scorsese are Goodfellas, The Age of Innocence, and The Departed. So that's probably where you'd see the most crossover in cinematography between the films and this
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so this movie it follows Paul taking a chance. He is just a paper pusher that takes a chance with the lady he meets to go visit her at a time that's clearly too late for him, judging by his first view of the clock. And he just right, it's like 11:30, and he's like, "Oh no!" Homie loses his money as he's on his way down there because somehow it flies out the
He's an
cab
idiot.
window.
Why would you? You're going through like this this maniac taxi driver, which isn't hard to believe. People in New York City, the taxi drivers, more than anyone, are some of the most recklessly uh, fast yet strategic drivers. They
Mm-hmm.
know how they know the ins and outs of their vehicles. Like it's crazy how fast and how many corners they can cut without crashing into the person next to them.
It's like, dude, just shut your window.
And that also
you know?
too, like there wasn't maybe the cap sinks. That isn't hard to believe.
Yeah, yeah. So he goes to Soho, finding this woman who he met because he was reading The Tropic of Cancer by Henry Miller, and she had found it particularly. I don't want to say entertaining. That's the wrong word. She found it as a particularly strong message. I forget exactly what she says, but she says it's like almost like a spiteful message.
She says, "This is not a book. This is a prolonged insult, a gob of spit in the face of art, a
Mm-hmm.
kick in the pants to truth, beauty, God and God."
And so he's like, oh, well, she likes the same book I do, so we'll get along well, without kind of like almost digesting the actual thing she said and why she loved it. And so he heads down there, and it pretty much all goes wrong from there. Almost none of it goes right.
Yeah, I mean, even him struggling to get his pen to work
Mm-hmm.
after
Mm-hmm.
she had told him the phone number. I thought I honestly gave Paul some props. He did not fumble his approach on getting the number. He smoothly, without
No,
even
no,
having to, you know, have to
all
directly
all
ask,
for the all for the paperweights. You know.
offer the paperweights. And uh, he does care for them at one point, but that wasn't his main intentions when he goes over to Marcy's.
No, there's not a chance.
He was being he had different intentions for sure when he had called, and it's late at night. This is how people meet back in the day. Nowadays people don't meet like this, and maybe we're heading in a direction where this is like a thing, because um, you have been out of the game for a while. I have recently been put back into this game called the dating life, and it's not as easy as some people may say. Especially
Mm.
at my age. You don't know what uh, what people are into nowadays, because you got dating apps that are, you know, people are trying to remove themselves of that altogether too, because it's such a weird concept, dating apps. And so, like meeting people out in public, like he did, I wanna do what Paul did. I wanna go out and read a
That's,
book.
it's what you got to do, and you got to reread your favorite book, because
Yeah,
otherwise you're gonna accidentally, like, you don't want to read the wrong book and you find the people who like that one.
yeah. It's like, oh, I'm reading this for the first time, but you've already read this. I don't even know what kind of person you are. At least if I reread a book, I know what kind of book this is, and I know what kind of person who would be into this book, maybe. So maybe that's what he's thinking. Like, oh,
I
I
mean,
know
and
what.
it could be, because I think the very first scene takes place with Paul and his co-worker, his newly minted employee, uh, talking about how to do their job, and the new guy is basically saying, "Hey, I don't want to do this forever." And Paul looks over the papers, and he looks like he's like, "I am going to be doing it forever." That's the vibe I get. Like, he's like, "This is just what I do." And then next thing you see him at this late night diner, meeting this lady, and then making the decisions you frankly wouldn't think that someone in that position would make. Someone who seems so stable immediately, you know.
You think he was stable? I think he was looking for excitement, dude. When I saw him looking spaced out, when the guy who was talking, well, who he was training, he
Mm-hmm.
looked to me like he did not give a shit that he was training this person, and he did not give a shit of what this person was telling him. And so he's just like, I'm doing this myself because I have to exist, and in order for me to exist, I have to have a job like this. And so I think he even fucking cries out later in the film, like, I'm just a fucking operator, a word operator, which is a
Mm-hmm.
weird way of calling yourself like a coder or something back in the day. But he's like a word processor. And
When he's
so
when he's in the street.
this was his way to finding excitement for the first time. Like, oh shit, I don't get a lot of chances to meet people like this, and he took the opportunity, and it sent him on a on a passage, or an odyssey. A lot of people, you yourself included, have referred to this as. And look where it got him. It got him in a world of just like, he went through a cycle of life that I don't think many people go through.
No, and it was I it was a long night. is what you can say. And something I liked about this in particular, I'm going to say a little bit in this long night kind of theory, is that as the night grew longer and as he kind of had this like sleep deprivation thing happening to
Yes,
him,
yes,
it felt like we were like falling more and more into a like dark place. There was the
yeah,
humor, and I think the cinematography kind of kept the movie moving and light regardless. But like the almost surreal aspects of this film where you're like, is this actually happening how he seems like it is? Because it's becoming less and less feeling attached to reality. Worked really well as the movie went on because he kept looking a little bit more and more tired, a little bit more dirty, a little bit more down in the dumps, and you're just like watching this guy kind of lose it. Uh,
yeah. I feel like we really had a top view of his life.
mm-hmm. I I remember when he was going into and this is jumping forward a bunch, but when he was going into the basement with not June.
Not Julie. The basement after he went to Berlin
Yeah, after he
again.
went to Berlin the second time,
June. I think her name was June.
yeah, because
The
Julie
one
had the
who
beehive.
Gail. No, not Gail. June.
It
June
was
is the
June.
one
Okay,
who lives
so
in the corner who no one talks to.
as he's going into the basement with June, and this is probably because I just finished the game. I remember I'm like, this feels like a scene out of Silent Hill. He's like going into the basement, surrounded by like fence posts, and none of the interactions he had seemed like human interactions. He's just dancing to Peggy Lee with somebody he doesn't know.
Yeah, and he just has such luck with finding people who are actually welcoming to him. Like that doesn't that seems surreal almost
Mm-hmm.
too,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody you come across is in some way willing to help you.
This is kind of like to me where it reminds me of the Odyssey, right? Is because he's trying to get home and he's like looking for he needs like the keys to get him home, and he keeps meeting these people who on one hand promise help but on the other hand derail him from what he's trying to do. Um like so Marcy, of course, she brings him to Soho, which is still in New York, which is still his home city theoretically, but it's just a completely different place than where he lives. And then you have Julie, who he meets at the terminal bar, and she hates her job, but she invites him in, and she should theoretically be able to help, but she gets a little bit too attached a little bit too quick. And then you have Gail, Catherine O'Hara, in this film, who has the easiest method of help, but she can't help herself. She's got too much of a sense of humor.
Could these all be seen as sirens?
They could be theoretically, and it's four blonde women, right? Uh,
Marcy, June. I think you and June, yeah, was blonde too.
so I mean, it absolutely could be, and everyone but Kiki was blonde. I think Kiki caused the least amount of pain to him, but Kiki just fell
Kiki
asleep.
was the nicest of the group. She was the one helping, you know. She was
Mm-hmm.
like an angel in disguise almost sometimes. And
She gave him his first set to like his first set of keys, and like if you notice in this movie, they point out keys an awful lot, and keys end up being like a main part. And to me, it's like Paul's just like so focused on getting home and so focused on the item he can hold in his hand, he doesn't recognize the situations he's setting himself up in.
okay.
He's like,
Yeah, and yeah, because that's how he enters for the first time
mm-hmm.
to the apartments. Um, I'm glad you mentioned keys again, because I just want to, if I may, give my. This movie doesn't have a lot of nitpicks for me.
Yeah.
I just want to give one nitpick right now that it's on my mind is the keys. When she drops the 50 rack of keys that key ring is holding, how did he know which key to use? He didn't describe it at all. He just automatically knew which key to use. And sure, yeah, obviously, maybe off camera, they're having this discussion. But she comes off as a person who just is so nonchalant, and it's like whatever, he'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm just imagining how long did it take for Paul to start going through each key. Like, fuck, why didn't she tell me which key to use? There's literally no key that says open me, you know?
Okay, we're talking about a door and a key. What's up with the bar that they have on the back of that door? Is that just like an anti like invader thing?
Bar at the back of the
So
door.
every time he opens the door, this like stick that's leaning against the door falls over.
Is it in the apartment?
Yeah, it's in the apartment that Kiki and Marcy live in. And
And it doesn't lead to Marcy's room?
no, it's the front door. So whenever he opens the front door, he's got to deal with the stick thing, and like he physically does deal with the stick thing. I think every single time. So it's not just like an out of the way prop. Like they've kept it there. The only thing I can think of is this is how they did anti burglary back in the
Yeah.
day.
I mean, and a burglary was like a side story that leads to more mishap.
Well, and like how with okay, so he's got this piece of. I suppose I should stay a little bit in context here. So he, when he's working with Kiki, gets a little bit of plaster on him, and he gets that little piece of newspaper, the paper mache stuck on his arm. And the piece of paper mache that's stuck on his arm talks about a crowd coming to beat him, or not beat him in per se, but beat someone to a pulp. And they like, well, I forget. I think he says like smash his face off. And they're talking about this, and this is one of those scenes where I'm like, it's so surreal because before this, he doesn't have the crowd coming after him, and I don't know how realistic all of this is because she reads this thing to him, and immediately after she reads this thing to him, and this is Gail reading it off of his arm before she tries to rip it
Yes.
off, and it hurts him. Uh, he goes out, and then he gets a whole entire mob searching for him and talking like they're going to beat him up and maybe smash his face off.
Yeah, off of the idea that he has been the one robbing them.
Even though like he has someone credible who knows that he's gone into the apartment and did not rob them.
But he was quick to turn on him too.
Oh, he was so
Uh,
fast to turn on him.
the bartender, I don't know his name at the top of my
It was Tom.
Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, who was so quickly to sell him out to the mob off the. Oh, you have a picture of him, a wanted drawing. That's enough proof
That's
for me
him
to.
for sure, 100%.
That's
Yeah,
it. Like you guys, it's mob mentality. Like, oh, there's more numbers on this side. I believe you
yeah,
guys.
yeah. Well, Tom had just
Maybe,
lost Marcy, right? Maybe he wasn't thinking right.
yeah, we gotta give some slack to Tom. He did lose uh, his girlfriend, but at the same time, Marcy was not a good person.
Marcy was, at the very least, complicated. I
Yeah, and I feel bad for her because she had some real deep, dark issues.
I
And
she should have known when not to call someone over. Is the most I can say because she was definitely not in the place.
no. And I mean, she seemed reluctant to have him over at the time that she did because there's a moment where, what's her name? Kiki and Marcy are having a discussion in the back saying like, or on the phone, like, no, you get rid of him. Like, you tell him when you get here or whatever. Like, it sounded like, what's her name? Marcy was having doubts.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's like, fuck, I gotta deal with this now. I gotta live in this reality.
Well, and this like sets up probably like in the start of this like really good tension that this movie has, despite being like a comedy movie. Is that like you get this tension between Paul's hopes and then the actual situation he is in. Like you can feel like Paul saying, "Okay, but this could all still work out. I could still, have a good time and then go home and sleep." And it would be great. And I think I really want that. But but the actual situation just continues to deteriorate around him at this time. Like there's this very clear mental health signifiers. There's a shit ton of trauma dumping like that happens for first time meeting someone. Um, but I think that was like the main tension of the movie when there wasn't really like this like here's a major problem that you have is they just kept creating this tension with Paul's hopes versus the actual situation he's in. And I don't really see that usually very often. Is hope used as a way to build tension?
What do you think his hopes were? Like, it really sounded like he was trying to get into Marcy's pants, and he's like, "Oh, this is a quick fire way to, get one off and live this, new excitement that maybe he's been longing."
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I go back to the beginning where he looked very not lost, but just empty, and was looking for any type of a thrill. And I'm sure he was prepared that night to go home and have enjoyed his meal at that diner and go home and restart the day.
I'm 100% with you. I think Paul is absolutely just there to get laid.
Yeah.
Like
And
even when
so
like he thinks Kiki's about to kiss him, like he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever." And she passes out, so that doesn't happen. But like as she's passing out,
and during this pass out, am I wrong to think that he's going off on a story and he he's talking about because burns come into the story numerous times, like the middle, I mean the beginning, the middle, and the end. But during the massage, they're going on about scars, and this leads to Paul talking about uh, being uh, being at a being put it with the burn victims and like in a burn
yeah,
ward because
mm-hmm.
the nurse gave him a blindfold. Because he had his tonsils removed, and he couldn't understand why he had to have his blindfold as a part of this operation. Uh, and so when he's telling the story, he reaches up to untie the blindfold, and he doesn't finish the story, and Kiki falls asleep. But later in the movie, um, he pays a quarter to the machine where he's at the bar with Julie, and then the song starts playing, and I feel like there's a tie in between his storytelling and then this song playing that's all there is to a fire. Like I don't know. I'm trying to remember the context of Paul's story, but that song coming on, just those two ideas being linked together somehow.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't make the link myself. I just like off the top of my head, I liked the song because that was the Peggy Lee song. That's all there is. I thought it was just a great use of the lyrics. That's all there is.
It was
And
funny for him to pay a quarter because this man has no money ever.
yeah, well, he got to keep that quarter because the bouncer at the oh man at the bar
Berlin.
that they went to, the Berlin club, let him keep it after he bribed him to get in.
I forgot what he had said to like.
I
You have
He said, "Don't let it.
to.
I will take this just so that way you don't feel like there's anything else you could have done."
That's what he said. Yeah.
Um, and again, it's just like I believe that's a quote from a friend's Kafka novel, and it's just like it leads to this, or it adds to the sense of surrealism because this guy he's not having his human interactions, that doesn't feel very human.
Yeah, I feel like if we're going with this whole Odyssey concept still,
Mm-hmm.
the the bodyguard can be seen as somewhat of a not a troll, but like, this creature that you have to go past in a lot of like these old like Odysseus type folklore, like Cyclops as people. And so you have to go through these challenges, and that was one of his challenges. was his bodyguard, trying to get into Berlin so he could get closer to a resolution of his night. Because at some point he's just like, once he's done with Marcy, uh, he's just looking for a way out. He's just looking for a way home.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many challenges that go into getting home that we often forget back in the day. Because it seems so easy for us now, where we have, well, a lot of us have phones. We can reach out to a friend, or we can, you know, hopefully have a bank account on our phone and we can easily get around. But for a, a person like this right now, he doesn't have that luxury. And it's hard to make films like this in today's day and age, almost, unless you're like, out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I out in the middle of nowhere, no cell reception, or your phone dies, and like that could be a part of it. Is no one will let you use their charger, right?
Yeah. And that's unfortunate because it seems like such a trope now. Like, oh, the only way you can, like, that's always the cop out with nowadays films where you're trying to make a struggle for somebody to not reach out to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, oh, they have to have like a broken phone or something.
They have to explain it away, right, to start with. Um, yeah. So how and I love the way he kind of like just gets all the girls that he meets in this, even the ones he doesn't want to, especially the ones he doesn't want to. Like him going to the terminal bar and meeting the Julie who hates her job and immediately invites him over. And she's the one who actually has the paperweights, funny enough.
Ms. Beehive 1965, yeah, she was the
Yeah.
one who was you know, she served it on a platter like a bagel.
Mm-hmm.
She had her hands out like a plate and was like, "Hey, look at this little neat paperweight I have." And at this point, Paul's just like, "Girl, just leave me alone. I just want to get home. It is probably like 2 a.m. right now. I'm on what I would imagine 18 hours of no sleep, maybe more. Like I am running on fumes."
And it's I love that Julie was so concerned about like the vibe of the record that she was playing. She's like, no, this isn't right. Okay, I'll play this other one. And she like
And
changes the music.
I connected with that so much because like this guy's trying to pour out his heart. I can't play an upbeat monkey song. I gotta play some like down tempo, somber ass. Like, oh, tell me about your feelings. Tell me what's going on. I love that about her. I like Julie. She was awesome. She was so kind and so sweet. And you know, maybe in a different time, Paul, that was a woman for Paul. Marcy was never the woman for Paul.
What was
But
up
now,
with the mouse traps around Julie's bed though?
I mean, she obviously had a mouse problem. She caught one,
As
but I
he's
think there
watching
was.
it.
I was listening to somebody's review
Yeah.
of the of this movie just
Mm-hmm.
to get some like additional context, and people have like said that Paul is like could be seen as a rat in this little mouse, uh, like, mouse and cat type of game because like he he has ratty like behavior. He's like just trying to get his own. He's just trying to get a quick late night, bed bounce, and get out. And he got caught in an act that not a
Yeah.
lot of people find themselves in.
Yeah. I see. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's maybe like a more pessimistic version of it because I'm like, I don't know that he feels like a rat to me, but it did feel like it was signifying how trapped he was, and like
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That too.
just like if you stay here, you're trapped. Also, like you still aren't gonna get out. This isn't the place that you need to be. Everyone is trying to trap you here right now. Um, but you got to remain calm and you got to focus on that key. And if you focus on the key and you have the key, you'll make it out.
The one key thing he did not get was the key advice to for for no one to tell him that nothing good happens after 12.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you heard that advice? Like nothing good happens after 12 a.m.
I at some point in my life I've heard it. Um, I also I have to wonder because I'm like, what? This almost feels like a fever dream of what people think goes on downtown in every major city. Like if I go downtown, I'm just someone's gonna overdose, they'll die, and then I'll see people committing crime, and then I'll get chased off them. They'll all hate me because I don't belong here.
Yeah, downtown. Most downtowns are wild, uh, wild scene. I mean, New York City operates way different than any major
Mm-hmm.
city. Uh, it does stay up way past its bedtime, and you can find yourself at a diner that you may know the locals if you go there often enough, like Marcy did.
Yeah, with Marcy, I almost felt like she was scamming Paul in the beginning. It felt that
Yeah,
way.
it did come off at that point when she took him to the fucking diner, and she starts opening up a little bit more about her husband at that diner,
Yeah,
and where we get the now classic line of her husband reciting Wizard of Oz during Whoopi.
the yeah, and just the way the diner um employee seems to know Marcy so well and seems to be so chill with it, and he even drops the after hours line.
Right, Peter?
Yeah, and I was like, this seems like something that she's done pretty often because he seems like he's almost in on the take.
Yeah,
Um,
different rules apply this late. It's like after hours.
I was
It's
like,
like, oh,
it's
he
the
said
name of
it.
the movie.
He said it.
Um, and I guess that's clearly not what happened. But I also kind of got that vibe when he's in the room with Marcy after he found out that she overdosed and she's dead. Like when he takes the blanket off of her, you can see her breathing. I couldn't
Can
know,
you?
but yeah, the whole time she's breathing just pretty regular. I was like,
I'm sure you could. Like, it's hard to. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can't hold your breath that long. So I don't blame her as an actress. That's probably something you're just not supposed to look at. But I was like in the same frame in my mind. I'm like, they're all just playing him. They're all trying to scam him, but for what? He's got no money. And maybe, and to me, that kind of paranoia kind of carried throughout because realistically, you're looking at all of it and you're like, every one of these situations kind of seems like someone's trying to scam him.
Maybe it was just Kiki and Marcy's way of playing a game. But no, it's not because, that would mean, what's his name's in on it? Tom, the bartender.
And Tom seemed like a chill guy till he sold out Paul for nothing.
But his girlfriend died, dude. Marcy died.
I also say he seems like a chill guy. He didn't seem like that chill guy. He beat the crap out of that cash register just to try to get $2 out.
This damn thing never opens. What would happen if I needed to give change to somebody? He goes off on this crazy rant. And it's like in every place he went to, it was always empty, but they were always open. Like, how are you guys making money?
The Berlin Club was pretty packed when he went in the first time, and he had to get
But
the
then there was
Mohawk.
an after hours event. Like, who's having an after hours event after hours after hours? This is 4 a.m. at this point.
Right, and it's like the dude's like, it's invite only, and the way he got an invite was some random punk walked up to him while he was in the diner alone and gave him very specifically the thing, and then walked out. See, this is where it's like it was also surreal. It almost reminded me of Twin Peaks or something, where it's like the social interactions they're happening, but they all seem so strange that it's almost hard to believe they are, and that adds such a layer to the film. Um, yeah.
Yeah, you just have a hard time believing some of the things that are happening in this film, but you have to. I feel like this movie works in a way that you're almost allowing yourself to suspend your disbelief because a lot of crazy shit's already been happening. Why not this? at this
hmm
point.
hmm And yeah, I mean, I would agree, and it's like that whole entire like is as he's losing his sleep deprivation, he just might not be thinking through these things clearly, and maybe we're just being presented with the way he's living this from his point of view. So,
I'm going to take a second to pull away from talking about the film just to talk about the music
okay,
in the film. And the music was done by Howard Shore.
okay,
And some people who may know that name, but for others, Howard Shore is most notable for scoring the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit film trilogies. So
wow,
very well known in his work. He's also done stuff with David Cronenberg.
okay, okay,
He's scored all but one of his films since 1979. So it's a big. This guy has a lot under his belt. He knows what he's doing, and I think he did a fantastic job in creating moments of tension outside of the well-known tracks that we hear, like the Peggy Sue songs that you had mentioned, the classical music that opens up the film. It's either Mozart or Bach. I cannot pinpoint at the moment. I did not, but there's also a classical score at the very end. So that might be the Mozart or Bach song. But there is an opener and closer of classical music. But in between, when you're not hearing those songs, and I'm gonna pull from the, the reviewer that I was listening to the YouTube video, and I'll try to get the name of it as I'm talking about this. But he had mentioned that in the film you would hear the the Peggy Sue's, the songs that you're familiar with that are like kind of warm and safe, while he was in a room with the person, and only you would only hear the Howard Shore scores while he was out in the streets, being either chased or moving from one spot to the other, looking for answers, looking for an escape. And in the Howard Shore scores, you hear this ticking of a clock, which plays into this after hours effect. And I think the music cannot be understated how well it plays into the movie.
I think I really let's see. I had made a note about the music in particular, and it was the transitional music, and it was right after, not right after, but like a short while after he had found Marcy dead, and he is moving on back towards the bar. The transitional music in the streets prior to the mob is just very surreal sounding. So like you can tell that like Paul's in a weird head state. So I think it like helps for me elevate like where Paul's at mentally throughout the movie. This transitional music.
And just quickly, before I forget to shout them out, for a better understanding of what I had just said about the score, please check out his YouTube channel is called ANDEWR. I think it's called Andewar, ANDEWR. He has a great video essay on this film as well. So give that a listen. Uh, he has some great points on this. Uh, just wanted to shout that out.
I
There were some really funny line deliveries.
Yeah.
Um, the Surrender Dorothy, obviously. Uh, I liked Must Be a Full Moon out there when Paul's trying to finesse the subway teller and
Mm-hmm.
just jump the turnstile. And I don't know how Paul didn't see a cop was right there, because the cop came on screen like immediately stopped him from what he was doing. I'm like, Paul, come on. I know you're sleepy, but you cannot be that clueless to know that if there's a cop right there waiting for you. Come on.
He's just that mad, that frustrated.
And that was the one he wanted. That was a train he wanted.
I really love the line like, take off. What's she gonna do? Kill herself? And this was in regards to Julie after he had already found out that Marcy was dead.
Tom said that.
Yeah, Tom said that. I was like, man, that is a dark comedy line right there.
He overlooked that and forgot that he had said that too.
I loved after they read the little newspaper thing on his shoulder when he said, "What does a guy got to do to get his face pummeled like that?" For some reason, it's just the delivery was great. I wrote down and underlined this line, and I don't really remember exactly when it happened, but someone at some point tells Paul he's got a lack of discipline.
I don't remember where that happened.
Um,
But I do, as I'm kind of watching this in the background, I'm at the point where like Paul is in the bar with that Tom works at. Do you know the name of the bar?
yeah, it's the Terminal Bar.
The Terminal Bar. And he goes and he just wants to sit down for a while, and then he eventually uses the bathroom. He uses the bathroom a lot, honestly.
He keeps doing that. Wash your face.
Yeah. He's trying to use. He's at the urinal, and he looks up at the mirror, and slowly looks to the left and sees a portrait of well, graffiti, not a portrait, like graffiti art of a man and a shark, and the shark is biting the man's dick. It's like, what the fuck? That's like the worst thing to see at the urinal. That's it.
Yeah, that's
like,
the one.
Oh, is that the movie?
Yeah, it's a movie.
That's hella funny.
Yeah, the movie's got a pretty sweet packaging.
That is pretty sweet packaging. That's the wanted note the wanted page that they quickly drew out.
Mm-hmm.
And we can only imagine that was drawn by Julie. She was an artist.
She would. I think they showed her drawing it actually, and like, so if he hadn't scorned her, no one would have known who he was.
Yeah, if he was just like so kind with the bagel and cheese, that's what he wanted to see with the fucking Marcy. Was he just playing her?
No, I think he was. Because at this point he was a little bit beat up about Marcy dying too, and then when he saw the bagel and stuff, I think he might have been a little bit scared about being tracked back down to her apartment. You know, he's like, I can't have also been here and then also have a bagel on the same night that she's dead.
It's like, get that shit out of my face.
Kiki's a hell of a artist. Her I don't even know what to call it, like tortured man statue.
The scream?
Yeah, the scream as he calls, or the shriek as he calls it.
The shriek, because he tried to relay and he tried to sound cool.
Yeah, he's trying to sound cool. He's like, I don't. He knew Edvard Munch's name, which is pretty good. I might even just have said the wrong name. I don't know. But
I think that's how they pronounce it in the movie, so we're just gonna go with it.
Yeah, he tries to sound cool. That statue sets like a good tone for it. It almost feels like something you would see in like a representation of like the what is that shit called? It's like the 9 circles of hell or whatever. Dante's Inferno. There we go.
Dante's Inferno, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then like it seems like this isn't like really necessarily the case, but he could almost be seen going through levels of like the Inferno to hell to try to get back home, and then he doesn't even get back home. He gets to do his job.
Yeah, he just cycles through life, work. That's his life.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it says good morning, Paul. I feel like this is your existence. You are nothing more than a word processor to us.
Well, and what if that's it? You know, like what if he is like just like stuck in this like limbo
Loop.
stage?
What if he's in an infinite loop?
Yeah,
What if
it
he's cursed now to live this infinite loop?
it could be, and it's funny because in such a funny movie that's got like such contention and cinematography, like I could almost see something that dark and that diabolical being kind of like the background actual idea behind this movie. And I think that's what one thing that this film does so well is it really just builds up this sense of mystery and intrigue in a situation otherwise that is wholly explained just by the story that it's captured. But it kind of keeps this feeling going that like there's something off about all of this. And what if the
When
thing that's off is just this? Yeah.
when Tom accepted my Tom when Paul accepted Tom's keys, I'm looking at it. They did a direct shot of his one of his keychains, and his keychains is a skull.
Yeah.
It's like a like. Do you choose? Do you accept death?
Yeah. I mean, uh, could be. Is the skull with the top hat too, right?
Yeah,
This is like this. It's like this death that presents itself so nicely to you.
and he grabs it by the skull.
Um,
He's like, here's the challenge you now face. But yeah, I think Martin Scorsese left the film open ended because it just ends like that. We get no. He never makes it back home.
he doesn't make it back
He
home.
has no way back home.
I
He
imagine once he's at his job, someone he knows will help him get home.
no, no, I'm joking. Yeah, bro.
They send him back to that diner with the same copy of the book, and then the loop really is there. Marcy shows back up, and that weird cashier is dancing. The guy who's just waiting to be discovered. I mean, like, what if when Marcy gives the line like he's just waiting to be discovered, and then Paul goes and buy it, he borrows the pen, and that's when the real loop starts.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of like that. This is not backed by anything. There is no backing to this other than the sense of surrealism in this film is fantastic, and it lets me do things like this with some modicum of sincerity.
yeah. Because I mean, we're left to believe that Paul is going to live a normal life after that. No, I think he's forever changed.
There's a drawing of him out
He's
there, and people
reborn.
saying that like he's a burglar, and how hard would it be for them to start connecting him to Marcy's death? Like, if you think about what happens the next day,
Yeah, he has to answer those questions because he called the cops saying that there was a murder, and I don't think the cops ever showed up because he ended up going back to that apartment to grab
the
something.
$20.
The $20 was that the only reason he went up there to
Yeah,
grab?
and then the $20 got stolen immediately again by the cab
Well,
driver.
like because he did bring it back after he had
Mm-hmm.
after the Cheech and Chong had stolen the well they didn't steal it, they bought it.
That was like the clever part of it is like they had actually bought the one thing that he thought they stole, and then they had
Yeah,
stolen everything else. So they were the
and
burglars, but he was wrong about the first part.
and what did he say when he had you know Cheech was saying something to Chong. It's like, man, it's the one thing I end up buying. This is why I don't buy. This is why I don't buy some shit like this. Or like, I don't know. He says something like
He
that.
says the one thing I end up buying is the one thing that gets ripped off. That's why you don't buy anything.
See what happens when you actually pay for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I mean, we kind of gone over a lot of stuff. I'm going to go over a few things here. Like the Mohawk night that was random, but seemed very. This everything just seems very bohemian in this
Yeah,
New York City Soho life. Like everything's just so like random, but yet you know for a good reason.
yeah. I think that's a little bit of a time capsule because, like in the '80s, Berlin would have been a cool place because that's where like David Bowie recorded his trilogy of albums, and Iggy Pop was over there, and Berlin was like huge in like punk and an underground music scene.
Oh, this makes sense. Yeah, I like this. I like this idea, this theory. I'm going with it. That's the reason they did it. And
Two
there's a
people are making statues of people out of paper mache.
yeah, I think one of them has the motive to kill. I think Julie was ready to like leave him to die.
She was like, I finally have a living person to do this to. Thank you.
And the people who ends up saving Paul are the people who put him in the mess, kind of
They're like the other outsiders.
the other outsiders.
Yeah, because like they're robbing everyone in Soho. They're not clearly not from Soho. They're just there to rob everyone.
Yeah, and they had a van full of stuff, and the streets are empty, and it seems like they kept going in circles. How did the mob at no point find Cheech and Chong, but Paul was able to see them all the time?
It's a good question. I mean,
Yeah, I really thought also that Paul was finally gonna get the comfort and finally get a moment of rest when he was on like June's chest, but that got disrupted when the mob came bursting into Berlin,
mm-hmm.
and the I guess the security guard has nothing, can't do anything against an angry mob, but I'm just
like, I mean,
they want to solve the problem of this burglar, but why not get the cops involved? But maybe because the cops won't gonna do anything. Because even when Paul tried calling the cops, they just said, "Uh, go get some sleep, buddy."
mm-hmm.
That was their way of helping him
Mm-hmm.
when he's trying to describe what frustration and what he's been going through this entire time.
Yeah, I mean, these people had a picture of him, so like, why not just kill him?
I mean, yeah, what were they gonna do? Like, just turn him to the cops?
I have to imagine that story that they told of one on his shoulder was like what was going to happen to him, where he's going to get his face smashed.
Yeah, that was it. That was the foretelling of his fate if he
Yeah.
got caught by them.
His face pummeled even. And speaking of which, like the whole Gale character is very strange. I think we kind of like glossed over Gale, the ice
Yeah, I
cream
think
truck
she plays a
driver.
small part. And all she was annoying. And the one part I do like about this moment of Gail was the outburst that Paul has with her, because it's very, it was very grounded, and that emotion felt grounded in reality. I lost real stuff is happening around him, but that natural reaction of like, dude, leave me alone. Like, I just want to get this number. You are distracting me. I do not want to be entertained. And I mean, Gail is also, fair in her, reaction of being like disgusted by this reaction of his, because she doesn't know what his night's been like, but neither does she. Like,
I mean, Gale's just obnoxious, like
yeah,
through and through. Like she's trying to be kind of nice with giving him a band-aid, but she doesn't listen to him when he says no. And then when he's on the phone, he's so close. He's so close. He has the number. If he could just call it, he could get out. She's just like completely trolling him. And then like I guess you can assume that the intentions were there for her to give him a ride home. But if she had just not messed with his phone number, she wouldn't need to be involved in this. She ends up leading the mob to find him.
yeah,
It's like she's like this helpful person that just made everything worse for him. Which you can draw like some sort of like parallel to that, like someone who's helpful, but they're not involved, and then when they find out that there's a different avenue they could take, they end up being way more of a harm. That's just skill, but her job was definitely not boring.
yeah. She was an ice cream person,
And she's like, it's not boring. I drive an ice cream truck. It's not boring. Yeah, it's not boring. It sounds boring.
and that's what he was trying to avoid this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Paul was tired of being bored, and he didn't want to listen to a not so boring ice cream cab. He just wanted Just want to get home.
I do have to say, okay, I remember the part with the lack of discipline now, and I want to bring it up just because it did
All
make
right.
me laugh. Okay, so when Paul goes back to the Kiki and Marcy's apartment before he finds out Marcy died, he walks in and Kiki's tied up to the pole, right? And then
Oh yes,
her
Roust
boyfriend,
or
yeah,
House.
yeah, whoever she's with that night comes in, and he's the one who decides to discuss what happened before with Paul, and he goes, "That was rude of you before, Paul. You really ought to be ashamed of yourself." And Paul says, "I don't know what could have come over me." And Horse says, "Lack of discipline."
Yeah.
I laugh because I'm like, it doesn't even make any sense in this particular case, but I love it. What a line. Um,
And how did the door lock behind him? I don't know. There's a lot of confusion in that apartment.
that like were Kiki and Marcy actually talking to each other, or was like that just something that he was hearing? You know, because then Marcy goes, "What did you say in there? I swore I heard you." Like it felt like that whole thing was just to set up this like surreal feeling. Like it just like took Paul immediately out of reality. That room just sucked him out of reality. Maybe he took the sleeping pills.
No, I did generally like enjoy watching this film. This I haven't seen a film like this in a long time, and it is a kooky film. The design, the the costumes, each character just plays off so well. I think the acting was very well done. I have, you know, a lot of positive and less negative to say about this film. I think if there was a negative thing, it was just like maybe some layers of just like plot, not plot holes per se, but just like again, just a suspension of disbelief in all of this, and him getting away with some of the stuff he's getting away with, and just the believability of some certain characters. But overall, I think like there's some layer of like reality and how some of these people may react, especially in Soho, Bohemian style, New York. They're probably seeing. I mean, you saw it, like there's a bunch of people in that club that were just batshit crazy, and so they're not too far off to believe that like someone like Paul walking in with some crazy stories like he's coming in. Like it's New York City. They're hearing crazy shit. So I have a lot of enjoyment watching this. I was really entertained, and if you have nothing else, I'm ready to like move forward.
Yeah, the
Work
last
on the
last little
thoughts.
thing I have is that I really appreciated like the practice zoom in. If you've seen Goodfellas, you know the scene where Robert De Niro is he's sitting in the diner and the camera is zooming in on him, and like it's famously made in such a way that it makes it feel surreal because he's also moving. I can't remember if he's moving forward or moving backwards during the scene, but
Mm-hmm.
he's moving counterpoint to the camera. And when Paul's on the phone in the beginning in the room, like when he's first calling Marcy's, it does the zoom in,
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, here we go. They're testing their theory right here, and they really perfected in that Goodfellas scene. But it was really nice to see it.
yeah,
And that's pretty much the only other point I had.
and you. And I will say one more thing because you reminded me of when you were talking about the camera. There's a point, and it's very small. You might not even catch it, and it's not even that big of a deal. Maybe I'm looking way too much into it. But I did enjoy when Marcy stepped away from her table to go sit next to Paul, and you could
Mm-hmm.
feel the camera following Marcy as she's sitting down. And it
Yep.
just felt like you were like going along the ride with her, and like watching the camera move along with her, and you were in that motion and that movement with them.
And
And
there was some really smooth parts like that, and there were also some like little technical things that I didn't love. Like there's a lot of little teeny jump cuts that would happen, where it's just like, okay, you're cutting off a half a second from the film, but like you miss out in smooth motion sometimes.
sure, sure, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Um,
dude, I'm sorry. I'm seeing this scene again. I didn't even connect the dots. Marcy has the skull tattoo on her leg. the same skull as Tom's
Yep.
keychain.
So you could have figured it out right there, right?
You could have figured it out right there when you saw the keychain. I didn't even pick up on that just now. I'm watching some this bag and just picking up on these little things. And these are the things you like. This film has a lot of like things I feel like you would like miss out on. Oh, and he's looking at the skull. Oh, how did I not pick up on that? He connected the dots right there and then. Oh, why did? Maybe he just thought it was a coincidence at that point because I think this is the point where he's not. He doesn't know that that was the. No, he does. No, I don't think this is the moment he finds out that that was his girlfriend. No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
No, it's not until later when he's in the
He gets a
bar.
phone call.
Yeah.
He just must have thought like, oh, that's an odd coincidence that the guy who let me borrow his keys, you know, has the same
Probably
tattoos as this girl.
he probably didn't even think about it at that time, I'd guess. He was just like, so I mean, you imagine you just walk in on someone and you're the first person to see him dead.
Yeah, you're probably more interested in like or more caught off guard, like, oh shit, someone just died.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. Um,
All right, so hit me with what you got, man.
so yeah, um, I kind of spoke earlier on some of the great things, and so what I'll say is, on a late night, if you find yourself bored, pick yourself up a copy of After Hours because after it's all said and done, I don't think you'll be bored anymore. I think you'll find yourself in the position where Paul is, lost but yet intrigued
Mm-hmm.
because you now found new meaning in a situation where you were bored before. I don't know. I just found it fun. It was a fun film. The directing is great. Martin Scorsese, what can you say? You know, his work speaks for itself. Uh, it's not The Irishman, so you won't have to sit that long to enjoy this film, and you'll get a lot from it. And I think everyone plays a solid role, and I think also from what I heard from another person, it may be again shout outs to Anwar or however he says his YouTube channel. He let Martin Scorsese, I heard, let the actors act the way they felt the characters would play best. And I think it shows. And I think Scorsese has a way to pull the best out of each person he has on set. And I'll be hard to believe if you weren't a bit entertained in its, absurdity. And, suspend your disbelief and just enjoy the ride that is After Hours. 7.5 out of 10.
Okay, so first off, shout out to the dude who wrote this script. He was apparently just a film student and he got an A on it. Kind of just wild. But so the final thoughts on After Hours is that it's a film that it's a film that has an intoxicating mixture of dread, tension, confusion, and humor. It's a feeling that pervades. Paul wants to go home. It's something that he knows and he understands. He took a chance and he found himself in an unknown world surrounded by unknown people, and he ended up broke and being chased by a mob. He never does make it home, but the feelings he has and the imagery and humor throughout the night certainly did. Story 5, acting 5, cinematography 4, editing 5, music 4, 9 out of 10.
Nice.
I did genuinely really enjoy the film. I think it's probably a cliche that whatever like the last Scorsese movie you saw was probably your favorite one, but I can't stand those super long movies he has. So I say that's not fully true. I'm sure like Shutter Island was probably 3 hours, and I love that one. Anyways, loved it. It's one of my favorites, and it was in a nice little tight package.
And I'm sure we described it earlier, but again, the costume, the design, the the clothing each characters wear, I love it. I love everyone's um, suit and ties and dresses and what have you. It's just this movie screams 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So before I tell of our next film, Andrew, you want to let them? You want to let the people know how we're going to choose our December films that are chosen for us?
Yes. So as we come closer to December, the month some may consider the month of giving, because it's uh, for us Westerners Christmas, and whoever listens to this, whatever holiday you celebrate, we respect it. And so, what I would like to do as a tradition each December, moving forward with this podcast, is give our listeners the opportunity to give us the gift of watching a movie they would like to for us to sit and review. And so we will be opening up December's reviews to you guys. So please reach out to us in any way you can via YouTube, our Instagram, Additional Crew. I don't know if we got streaming comments to look through, but we'll take those if we can find them or see them. And any way you can reach out to us, we are open to your
Mm-hmm.
movies, and we hope to hear from you guys on that.
And yeah, so to be clear, we have our Gmail, which is additional crew film review at gmail.com. Our Instagram is at additional crew, and our YouTube is also at additional crew. Currently those are the ways to contact us. um yeah, and also to be more clear, so this first film that we're going to be reviewing in December is a movie that I'm going to choose right now because we didn't give you this opportunity beforehand. But
Please send us what you
yeah,
have.
the next two movies we choose, which will be on December 12th and then December 26th, we'll be choosing. That's not a word. Chosen instead by the by viewer recommendation. With that said, Andrew, you got anything else, or should I tell them the name?
Yeah, go ahead. Shoot me
Sick.
what you got.
All right, so the next film we will be watching is definitely one that I would never have guessed I was going to choose. It's an old Disney film.
Oh,
It is from 1981. It is the film called Dragon Slayer, directed by Matthew Robbins. Um, Certainly a lesser known of the classics, but something that, according to Guillermo del Toro, is very worth your watch and was very indicative of a future to come.
yeah, I've never seen this, and I'm quite excited. I'm looking at the budget. It was an $18 million budget and only made 14 million. So that's unfortunate. They did not make their money back.
They did not make their money back, and it seemed like it was very hard to find a copy of this for a while. But recently that's changed. And I won't give away anything else because then I won't have as much to talk about next time. But I will say, Andrew, wow, I'm sorry. I guess I'm really putting you through the mill tonight.
Pod is over. Pod is forever.
Thank you for listening to Additional Crew Film Review. If you like this content, please check out our other episodes, and otherwise, please subscribe, give us a good rating. All these things help us to be seen a little bit more. We do have a letterboxed name is Additional Crew Film Review.